Hi, family, and we are back with another episode. This is real life, real people sharing their testimonies. And so today we have a special guest with us today. Her name is Candace Chapman. Hi, Candace, how are you?
Hey girl, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm getting over a cold. So if I sound a little stuffy or if I'm sniffling, excuse me. But I'm glad to be here with you and to hear your story, your journey. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself.
Well, thank you for having me. My name is Candace Chapman, and I love that your name is. It's this is literally a journey. Like I
Yeah.
love that you said that because my story is definitely a journey. I
Yeah.
am currently in Houston, Texas, which I was born and raised from.
Okay.
In and prior to this, God moved me to New York. I was in Brooklyn, New York. So I just moved back down to Houston 4 months ago in July. It's definitely been a journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, but
Which
it's,
we'll get into.
what was that?
I said we'll get into that.
Yes,
Your
definitely
journey.
a journey. But yes, my name is Candace. I'm a content creator, a entrepreneur. Um, just, yeah, we'll talk about all of that.
Awesome. So let's get right into our question. So, when did you come into the realization that there was a God? What happened? Take us back to that day.
All right. So I grew up in the church. I That was in my roots, my blood. My mother was very influential of my, I guess, presentation to God and to make sure that having Christ as the foundation of my life was key.
Right,
Like there was no way to
right,
even live life without that. So I
right,
grew up in the church, but as what I have learned and what again this journey that we talk about,
right.
um, my journey to truly building a relationship with God did not come until my 20s, late 20s. Like
Okay, so
I
what
grew up,
happened? What happened with that? That you were like, okay, I need to kind of have my own personal relationship, not just what I'm being told, what my parents are telling me. But so, what happened that you went off and found your own relationship?
yeah, so it was like a continuation of things that happened. I don't even know if it was like one pinpoint. But I noticed what I was noticing is like once I left to go to college, I was like kind of like free at last. I don't really have to go to church. I don't have to do all this and different things like that. So it felt like I had to take this mask off that I was wearing for so long. And so once I got to college, life happened. Like life happened, decisions that I made that literally altered my life. And what also drew me away from God for so long, too, dealing with the guilt and the shame and the what I was remembering growing up in church, like, don't do this. And if you do this, like all these, like, don't. So it literally like shielded me from getting closer to God and wanting to get closer to him because of the thoughts of like, oh, well, he can't forgive me. He can't do this. Or, just the fear of not being accepted by him. So just pull me away. And so once I graduated from college, I started teaching and I did not go to school for teaching. My degree is in biology pre-med, minor in chemistry.
Wow.
And that was another God thing of like, hey, you are gifted in teaching. You are gifted with children. I need you to be there. And so any educators, teachers know that the life is a very dark and heavy life because you endure so much. Not only do you have to work through your own struggles, you have to bear the crosses for the little ones too, and their struggles and things that they go through, and being a sounding board for them and being an advocate for them. So it was heavy, and I was not prepared for it. So that was a really dark time for me. Very, very dark. And in spite of the darkness, I knew that God's light was shining bright because he was like, I've never left you. I've never taken my hand off your life. I've never disowned you. I've never done any of these things that you thought that I have done. And so in spite of that, I'm going to connect you to a church that is not like the ones that I grew up in and knowing like it's this. It's a church that was about relationships, not just with God, but with each other. And how does that look? And how do you foster those relationships to be authentic and to be who you were created to be in that space and not feel judged and condemned for, whatever the case may be. So it was definitely a process. And like I said, it was my late 20s and I'm 36 now. So it's more of I guess not really a long time. We'll just say over a decade.
Yeah.
It's a journey that I've really come into the realization like, oh yeah, God, you are real and you are loving and you want a relationship with me. And it's not about the rules and how this looks and how you want it to look and all these different things. It's literally getting to be connected to him and stay connected to the vine to make sure that I am in alignment and that wherever he's calling me to go and do, I'm able to hear that and discern that and move accordingly and not on my will, but his will.
No, that's so good. And so you grew up in the church, and then you went off to college, and life starts happening, and it's like, okay, I need to figure out who God is on my own. And so you enter teaching. Is that is that what happened? You enter
Mhm.
teaching, and then it's during that time. You were saying that was a dark time for you.
Very dark.
What made it so dark?
Because I didn't feel equipped. Like I said, I did not go to school for teaching. Like I had no
Right.
teaching background. The only thing that I knew what to do was to be myself. And that's when God was like, take the mask off. Like you know what to do. I've equipped you. Like the teaching gift is in you. It's just time for that to come out.
So
But
how did if you didn't go to school for teaching, how did you know that God was calling you to teach? What were some of the signs to say, like, okay, I'm just going to start teaching, even though I just completed school for biology?
right. So growing up, I've always had a love for children. Like I always have this youthful connection piece with like even at my church, I used to volunteer to be with the kids and youth kids. Every church that I've gone to, I've been connected with the kids. So I've been able to teach them in a way that they've been like, hey, I never even thought of it that way. And then older women that I consider mentors, they spoke life into me and was like, you have a gift of teaching. And I used to fight it. I'm like, no, I don't know who you're talking to because I'm gonna be in jail because my attitude, the way my attitude's set up, I'm gonna fight a kid, I'm gonna be in jail. So no. And God's like, no. But when it just showed me that when God shows you who you are to other people, especially when people that that you admire and that you look up to, he has given them a gift of discernment to speak
Mhm.
life into situations like dark situations or whatever the situation is, and to for that to be a root or not a root, a seed that's planted. And
Yeah.
so when the time came when I was able to, because not just them, my brother-in-law actually was like, hey, have you thought about teaching? What are your plans after graduation? And he invited me in to interview at the school. So not only did I have to interview, I actually had to teach a lesson to show the principals that I was able to teach, even though I did not have any background. And they were amazed. And I was amazed. And I'm like, wow, I can do that. And never met the kids. They were like,
Wow.
I never, and the way that I was able to connect with them was also God's stamp of approval. Like, see, I'm trying to show you who you are.
Right.
But it's a journey. It's a journey because even with that, I was still like, "Are you sure?" Because I don't want to. There was still so many questions that were in my mind on that right there. But he's so loving and so gracious. He's like, I'm gonna continue to show you, and that's
Right. So he confirmed it. He confirmed
mm-hmm.
it through other people
Yes.
that he put in your life to say, "Nope, this is the right way. This is the right direction. Keep moving this way." And so are you still teaching today?
I'm not. So that was it was a caveat from that. So at the school that I was at, I taught there for 3 years. 3 years. So my first year I taught fourth and fifth grade. And the second year I taught fourth grade, but got moved to fifth grade. and then fourth and fifth, fourth. Oh, did fourth and fifth 2 years, and then my last year, fifth grade. And so even with the transition from that, God removed me from that job, but I knew that He was moving me to something else because my approach and mindset and everything was different from the school that I was at, and that was okay. I was in a teacher certification program at that time to get certified to teach high school biology, which my degree is in biology, and I love biology. I love science. I love going deeper. So that was what my focus was. And so when I left that school, it was honestly, I had no idea where I was going to go and where God, I knew that I was fresher on my journey with trusting God. So
Yeah.
I knew that, okay, so I'm just going to do a little bit, if, I'm praying, asking other women to pray for me at that time. Like, I was like, I didn't know to look for confirmations and, different things. It was like, I'm going to pray. I'm going to ask for, other prayer. I'm just going to allow the Holy Spirit to guide me, whatever that may look like.
Yeah.
So it led me to a, what was it called? I can't even remember the name. Um, Basically it's where there's like all these different jobs, and they go into like at this point it was at a like a
A job fair?
kind of, yeah, we'll call it job fair.
Okay.
For yes, but there's a name for it, but we'll just say job fair.
Okay.
And so there was all these schools there. And so
Mhm.
again, I was like, okay, I have my resume. I don't really know, like I know I want to teach biology, science, and that's pretty much what was it. And so as I walked into to the facility, the it was another like paying attention now and thinking back, it was such a God thing because the district that I was hired for was literally right next to the district I grew up in Houston. And I was teaching
Wow.
in San Antonio. Like they literally were next to, and I was like, okay.
Right,
And
right.
so I ended up getting hired literally on the spot, talking to like it was such a God thing that was like, okay. They were like, okay, we want to interview you. You need to go over to HR, fill out your paperwork, and all these different things. I'm like, whoa, okay, that's what we're doing.
Wow.
So at that time, they were saying because I needed to have my certification because I had already had my test plan to take the test or whatever. So they're like, just give us your scheduled date. You'll be fine. Go in the system, whatever. Because in my mind, I'm like, I mean, I've been teaching it. That's what my degree's in. It is what it is.
Right.
So fast forward to I took the first time I took the test, I failed. And I
Wow.
was like, okay, God.
God, what is this? What's going
Right.
on?
I'm like, so I got hired on the spot, literally already in the classroom teaching, and I'm failed. Like,
Yeah. It
okay.
doesn't add up.
It's not the math is not mathing
The
at this
math isn't mathing. Yes.
point. So I'm just gonna fast forward. So I ended up taking the test 3 times, failed all 3 times. So the last time I know that that was one of my breaking points where I literally was like yelling angry at God cuz I'm like, you like I'm telling him like he don't know. You made sure I got hired and you gave me this and you did you and this is how like this is cannot be how this ends. And so after I had my little fit, this his still small quiet voice but strong was like, trust me, I have a plan. And of course, I'm like, what am I to get my job back? Like, what's the
Yeah.
plan? Because this,
Right.
like, at this time, I had already built a rapport with the kids, loved it. Like, it literally was like my dream job. And
Yeah.
so, even from that, I was like, I can see why God planted me there. But at that time, it was like, oh, okay, I'm here, I'm making a lot, difference in these kids' lives. They're different.
Right.
But what is that going to look like for me in the future? Because in my mind, I was like, I want to travel. I want to be a consultant. I want to teach other teachers how to build relationships with the students, especially like tie in your love with science, because science is like one of the most dreaded subjects that kids just, for some reason, they just don't like. And I love it. And I have a fun way of teaching it to them. And so fast forward, failed, And even with that, I was still able to teach in that position. But literally 2 days after my 28th birthday, um, they filled that job. So I had to leave that. And I didn't even get to tell my kids bye. Like it was a bad weather day the next day. And I was just like, I know, because I definitely suffer from roots of rejection and abandonment. So I know how it feels like when someone's leaving, all of these different
Yeah.
things. And I did not want that for
Yeah.
them. So I was like, God, what can I do? Like, that I want to be there, I at least want to say bye. So I ended up typing them a letter, and I connected with the teacher that essentially got my job. And that was nothing but that was totally God, because the way that I was able to talk to her, literally, it was her first year teaching. I was like, hey, you can come in, I'll leave my stuff up for you. Just, it was nobody but God. And she asked me at the end she was like, can I ask you something? And I was like, yeah. She was like, why are you being so nice? And I was like, this is nobody but God. I was like, God has a plan. He told me to trust him. That's all I'm doing. And so we ended up talking, and she actually graduated from my college,
Wow.
same degree. It was such like just thinking back, it's such a
Great connection.
strategic. Yes. I'm like, God, you were so perfect. Like literally how everything lined up, not how I wanted it to, but how he needed
Right.
to be. So even from that, I was able to transition and start teaching, connecting with other, like the Boys and Girls Club, reaching out and not reaching out, but working with autistic boys and different things like that, getting trainings on so many different things. And what he ended up doing was equipping me to move back to Houston at the end of 2014. So I moved to the San Antonio area in 2010, moved back to Houston in 2014. And so when he moved me back here, I started subbing at my district that I grew up in. Um, and started working for an education mentoring consulting company as the director of curriculum. So I wrote curriculum. I taught teachers and mentors how to build
So all the
relationships
things
with
that
people.
you really wanted to do.
Yes. My
Wow.
my package, not my way that I want it, but God's way. And it's like he wrote the perfect story.
Yeah.
Perfect story.
And I
Um
think that's a great example of trusting God when you don't understand.
mm,
How you're just kind of like going through this process, and it's like, okay, I don't know what's happening, but I'm just trusting you that there's something better that's more in alignment, with your will. And it sounds like he still gave you what you desired
Yes, and more.
and more.
And he keeps adding to that. I love that you said that, if we trust him, and it's in on this journey of trusting him, because he's definitely continues to give me opportunities. I'll just call it opportunities to trust him more.
Mm.
Because that even just led to me moving to New York and just so many other things that literally trust, because trust, and one thing that he had to show me is that I did not trust. I do not trust people.
Mm.
And so when he revealed to me that I don't trust it, I was like, but I trust you, God. He was like, no, you don't. You don't. You
No,
think you do, especially because for me, I started, it's like, well, I grew up in church. I know you and all these. He was like, but you didn't trust me though.
mhm,
You knew of me and you served me. You accepted me as your savior, but you didn't trust me. And
mhm.
so what he's been so gracious to show me what trust looks like, and get literally I view it as like little breadcrumbs of opportunities to pick up, to be like, okay, I trust you with this. And he's like, okay, maybe some crumbs are bigger, some crumbs are smaller, but it's an opportunity to trust him more and to build my trust and to be able to be used by him in a way that I can't even fathom, because I've been able to meet so many people, move so many places, and do all these things because I'm picking up those little crumbs of trust with him.
What would you tell someone who's like going through a similar process and they're like, I don't know what's going on, but they're basically going through a test of trusting? Maybe they thought they trusted God, but God's like, let me show you what you need to do. So, what would you tell someone who's going through that right now?
I would definitely tell them to, one, don't second guess what you're hearing and feeling from God.
Mm,
Whether it be, it may sound crazy, it may feel crazy, it may go totally against everything that Even your family's telling you. But if
Yeah.
you know that if you have that peace that's there, and that we'll say the confirmations and the different things like that, that is what I fueled myself off of. Because even then, he had to strip me of me going to people to be like, "Hey, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that?" He was like, I'm here. Learn to trust me. If we're in this journey together of trusting each other, you can't go to somebody else and be like, "Oh, well, what do you think about this first?" Not saying that you can't get, godly counsel, but if that is my go-to first, then that's a problem. And that's something he showed me. It was like that codependency on others, and like, what do you think about that? And that's so prevalent in our faith, in our building our relationship with God. It's we want to reach out and ask other people what did God say, or or prophetic voices, or all these different things. And it's like, he's like, hey, I speak, I'm still here.
I've been here the whole time. I've
Right.
never left you or forsake you. And I like to tell people, like when you are going to church or if you're listening to a prophet, anything that anyone is saying to you should just be confirming what God already told you. But
Hmm.
if you don't have that intimate relationship with God, I highly recommend
Yes.
for you to pull back so you can hear from him yourself, and then anything else is just confirming what he already said.
Yes, absolutely. That pullback is so he had to completely strip me. He
Yeah.
was like, there's too many distractions, there's too many voices, there's too many
I
white
went through that
noises.
process as well, and I
Yeah.
think we kinda just are programmed that way,
Mm.
to just listen to everyone else but the voice inside of us, because really everything we need is already inside.
Here.
Yeah, so we're just programmed to look for everything outside of ourselves.
Mm.
And so that's when God's like, hey, let me take everything away that you thought you needed, and I want to sit you down so you can understand my characteristics,
Mm.
and understand my voice, how I talk to you.
I love, yes, that sitting still, that isolation season
Yeah.
that was definitely necessary for me when I moved back to Houston. He was like, I'm giving you, this is steps. And this even preparing me to move to New York. It was a journey for me to start trusting and have faith and all these different things, and to be confident in who he created me to be. Because
Yeah.
again, like I said, I had to take the mask off because I had a mask for so long. And I was like, whoa. And anytime that I felt that I was trying to take my mask off, others would be like, oh no, like it would be so much that I'm like, well, I'm just going to go back to what I know. And that's, safety, or I'm going to be quiet, or I'm not going to really speak my truth. And I'm not really going to challenge things. And I'm not going to rock the boat, things that we say. And
Mhm.
God's like, no, I created you for all of that. I want you to rock the boat. I need you to speak the truth. I need you to walk out on faith. I need you to encourage other people to do it in spite of what the surroundings may look like, and what the bank account may look like, and what others are telling you, and all these different things. But that connection piece with God, that is what's going to be the most successful. That's what's going to lead us exactly to where we're supposed to be, and not have these moments of, not saying that life is not going to life us, but we'll be
Life is definitely going to do the life
yeah,
thing.
it's gonna mollywop us. It's gonna do all of that. But we need to be able to be so secure in God, and knowing that in spite of what's happening, there's always a plan. He's always there. He's always leading. He's always speaking. He's always guiding. He's always there, with literally with his arms open, waiting for us to step into that, to be like, I don't have it. And I love that my pastor, we've been doing this series on the death of religion. And so we've been
I
talking
love
about,
how the pastor is doing that.
oh,
Because
absolutely. Oh, my church. Oh, yes. Starlight. Yes, that is my church. My yes, hands down. We have been doing a series of the death of religion, and it has been so good.
it
So
sounds good. What is it about?
so we've been talking literally. It's like I feel like he has the fine tooth comb, the little rat tail comb, and going through all of your mindsets on, like, okay, so what is God? What is religious mindsets? What are things, the different things that we've talked about? Last week we talked about the solution. And the solution is literally saying, God, I don't have it. I surrender. I can't. Empower me with the Holy Spirit to do what I can't so that you can move through me. And not having that mindset of like, well, thou shalt, you didn't do this, or you didn't tithe, or you didn't do this, or you're not acting a certain way. The very legalistic way that I know for I'll speak for like the church that I grew up in was very legalistic. And there was different things, and it was more of a fear, like, well, what can I do? Like, is God really loving? Is he really gracious? What does he look like? How does he? And that literally was my mindset too. Of like, well, what can I do? Or what can I do? Because I'm going to fall short every single time, every time.
Yeah.
And so going into this sermon series of like, God, I can't do it. I cannot do it. I cannot heal on my own. I cannot forgive on my own. I cannot walk out this life on my own, but you can. So empower me through the Holy Spirit to do that. And
Yeah.
girl, that has been the most like, it's like a simple prayer, but it's a heavy prayer. It's like,
Yeah, because that's surrendering. And it also
yes,
takes the pressure off of us,
yes,
because it's like we are not supposed to carry all these burdens. We don't have to know it all. We don't have to have it all figured out. But
no,
all we have to do is just say, God, I don't know. I surrender. And because when we are weak, He can show up strong. And
yes,
that's really the objective of it all. Just like surrendering so that God can move in you and through you to do what He needs to do in the earth.
absolutely. But surrender, girl, it's hard. It
Yeah.
is very
It's
hard because we
it's
have our plans.
it's easier said than done.
Yes.
It's easier said than done, um, because it does take discipline,
Hmm.
and you will experience certain hardships that you will have to overcome. But I will say it's worth it.
Absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
worth the laying down of your own plans.
It is. It really is. It really is. Like,
Yeah,
it's so worth it. It's such a place of freedom. And when Jesus talks about, I came to give you life and more abundant, like that freedom, it's not abundant, like, oh, I'm not saying that he can't bless us monetarily, all those different things, but the peace that we experience, like abundant peace, freedom, just to be able to
yeah,
be who we've been called to be, and to help others to become who they're supposed to become, and all of those different things. That's what the blessing is, and that's why he created us. It's not for us to just either stay in our little box or our comfort zones, or on our plans or our timelines. It's like, no, like I have some great things for y'all. Like, I'm the God of all things, so I don't want to
yeah,
just limit my children to like, oh yeah, you go to church, you serve, you have a this job, or you talk to this. Like, he's like, no, I want to blow your mind.
yeah.
I want to blow your mind to a point you're like, who are you? You wake up looking at yourself like, who are you?
Dude, like,
What?
what is this life?
Right. Who would have thunk that this was
Right.
even in, just for God to have, for me to be able to experience and walk into.
Yeah. Exceedingly abundantly more
Yes.
than what we think or could imagine. Um, so, Candace, this was wonderful. Thank
Um,
you, for sharing your story. And where can we find you on social media or?
yes. So on Instagram, that's Candace, and Candace is spelled like that. So that's Candace. I also have a blog called becomingthatperson.com.
Okay, okay? Talk to us a little bit about the blog.
All right. So I actually started blogging 20 2012. Maybe no, maybe before then. I have two blogs, but my first one I started blogging when I moved back to Houston. It was called Sweet Inspirations by Candace. So it was just little devotionals, little different things that God would give me, so I would able to, pour into people's lives. And so as I was moving to New York, I brought my audience along with me, and talked about
Okay.
how
I love
transitions,
that.
because transitions are,
Are rough, and they're
ooh,
so ghetto Transitions are
Yes.
difficult.
Ugh. I'm like, well, why do they exist? But I know why they exist and why they're needed. But that's the best
Yeah.
way. I'm glad you described it that way because
Yeah, check
it
it
is,
out.
because it's like, what is going on?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I journeyed, brought my audience along on that. And I felt like I grew with that blog as well. But once I moved to New York in 2018, I stopped blogging from that one. And it wasn't until last year, God was like, I need you to start blogging again. And I'm like,
Mm.
what? Because he gave me the brand. So my brand name is That's Candace. And so the story behind that was actually when I was trying to come up with the name, I was like, oh, I'm just going to do my whole name. And he was like, So as I was going through some names, the Holy Spirit was just downloading of like, well, who are you? Literally, like I was talking about, like me trying to unmask myself. He was
Right.
telling me like who I was and how I'm supposed to be described, and us as believers and how we're described. If someone did not know you, Jordan, but they were describing. So if I would be like, oh, she's soft spoken, a woman of God, beautiful. Like if I'm just giving all these different things, and they're like, oh, that's Jordan, like they would know how I described you. And
I
so us
see.
as believers, in order to be that person, to become that person that God has created us to be, I came up with the acronym. We have to be transformed, we have to be healed, authentic, and transparent. So in order
Mm.
to get to that,
So say that again. Um,
trans- so transformed,
okay.
healed, authentic, and transparent,
And transparent. That's good.
to become who God has created us to be, because there's a journey, a ghetto journey in transition, but in amongst that journey and along that journey, we learn so much, not just about ourselves, but God. And that's where I've really grown my relationship with God, because like you spoke about, we get to know his characteristics, we get to know him, we get to know how he moves, how he thinks,
Yeah.
how he sounds, but you're in the trenches with him because you're transparent with yourself. Like, God, I'm a hot mess. I don't have it. I do not have it together. I do not know what's happening. I have to continue to surrender.
Yeah.
There's areas that I have to be healed from, and I'm on my healing journey for all of those different things. And in order to do that, like that's what's going to yield for me to be transparent, to be able to have these conversations, these real conversations with you and other people, be like, this is my life. Like this is where I've come from. And I'm nowhere near where God is going to bring me, but I'm on this journey to become that.
Mm.
And so it's just a place for me to encourage, just for people to know who I am, and to get to a place where they feel comfortable in their journey of becoming who
Mm.
God created them to be. And I also just have, I just started a new business called Flips and Learn. So I'm, as my former education
Yeah.
background, I created a gymnastics and education program for children, starting at 4 months to 5 years old. And the premise is for parents to build bonds with their children, because I believe our parents are our first teachers and our home is our first school. So
Mm.
you can expect,
That's
and what I
good.
experienced as a teacher, I've received a lot of blame. Like, why is my child not learning? Why is my child not doing this? And I'm like, well, so as a parent at home, these are some supplements, some things that, I would
Right.
suggest that you do with your children, because then it's not so much pressure on the teacher or the parent to be so upset and
Yeah.
all these different things when their child is not performing on a level that they're supposed to be on. Because I'm like, you're their first teacher, believe, through the verbals and nonverbals.
That's
Your home is their first representation of a school. So if there's no structure, if there's no, they cannot come to school and have this total different mindset of like, oh, this is how I'm supposed to act here. It's not, that's not how it is. So I created this program. I know this was something that God gave me, because I was putting it off for like 2 years. And he was like, you need to get this together. So that is, it's called Flips and Learns. And so all the information, if you go on my, becomingthatperson.com, there's, tabs that you can click on, and you'll get to know me. I have a whole, even my background, with my gymnastics and cheer coaching.
And
And all of
this is for people who are in the Texas
no,
area.
this is virtual. It's
This
all
is
virtual. Yep.
awesome.
Made
Okay,
it
that's so
virtual.
good. I wasn't sure how the gymnastics and everything worked, but it's virtual.
It's virtual, and it's
So
yes, I have
people from all over
all over.
join who are parents. Um, that's so good. So say the website again for I know there's a lot of moms and young women who watch. So where if they're interested, what's the
Mhm.
website?
So it's becomingthatperson.com. And
Okay.
so there's a tab, it'll say get to know Miss Candace, and you click on that, and they'll literally have everything that you need to know on there. My background, why I created the program. There's videos on there, and it'll take you to the courses too.
Okay, that's so good because I know a lot of time, as parents, we can put a lot of that on the school to teach our children certain things,
Hmm.
and even on the churches to teach our
Yes.
children about God and spirituality. And it's like, no, that starts at home. You have to teach your child about, the prayer, waking up praying, establishing those habits, so when they get older, they don't depart from it. And so I think that's so good and so needed. So thank you so much for joining us today, Candace.
Um,
I appreciate you. And we will see you guys in our next episode of Jordan's Journey podcast.